Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm your host, Susan Spears, the President and CEO of the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber of Commerce here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I'm excited to have with us today Stafford County's Sheriff David Decatur from right here in Stafford, Virginia. David, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you. I've been working with David for several years on an event we do. We're sitting down today here. It's July of 2022. But annually, we work together on implementing a chamber event in August each year. That's where we recognize our area first responders for different awards and things. And so it's been a joy to get to know you and some of your folks a little bit better as we've done that over the last about 6 years.
Yeah, thank you. We're very grateful for the incredible partnership we have with the Chamber of Commerce. You all play such a vital and important role to our community, and we're very grateful. It's all about partnerships and having the synergy of working together and making things better in the community. Yeah,
well, thank you. I think that's what we're all about. Now, I do have your bio in front of me. I want to share a little bit with our listeners. Sheriff Decatur has actually been in his law enforcement career since 1986. He's been with the Stafford County Sheriff's Office after serving as an airborne paratrooper in the U.S. Army. He served 2 years as a deputy sheriff and a deputy sheriff sergeant assigned to jail operations and advanced to a patrol deputy assigned to field operations. And then it goes through a whole lot of different positions that are pretty cool that even have things like SWAT commander and instructor. That just sounds cool. I don't know if it is cool. But he was elected sheriff on November 3rd, 2015, and actually took office as sheriff on January 1, 2016. So overall, that span of time, he's certainly seen a lot of changes and so forth. But let's just dive right in and hear a little bit more about you as an individual and a leader. Tell me about your leadership journey.
Well, for me, I had a huge influence from my father. My father, he worked two jobs. When he retired, he worked at a prison, Lorton Prison. He worked for D.C. government, and he actually had rose to the level of superintendent or warden. But he ran a local business in Stafford. Right across from Stafford Courthouse was Decatur Sunoco gas station.
Okay.
And he ran that, owned the property, owned the building and everything. And I learned so much about customer service from him and leadership. Things that are really important, like, treating the customer right, and making sure that you arrive on time and you treat people the right way and you care for the customer, and watching his work ethic. And being young, like clay, you're being molded and shaped. And, there's an old saying, preach a sermon every day, sometimes use words. But for him, just his actions of how he took care of a family, with 4 children and worked 2 jobs and was able to make all that happen and take great care of us. And, of course, my mother, she was another level of leader in our household. She was amazing. She is an amazing lady.
Yeah.
So through both of my parenting that I received from both my mother and father, I learned a great deal.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's pretty interesting. Now you said there were 4 kids. Where were you in that hierarchy there?
I was the baby with 3 older sisters. So I had a lot of female influence in my life.
We could go on this whole episode about just that alone, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it really prepared me for the future, because I ended up raising a daughter on my own from probably the time she was 7 years old. And all of that preparation of being raised in an environment where there were so many females and having that positive influence just really prepared me. And I'm very grateful for it. I wouldn't change a thing.
All right, but I want you to tell me, come on, they had to have pushed you around a little bit sometimes, those sisters.
Oh, yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah, there were 3 of them and 1 of me. Yeah, but I love them dearly.
I'm
very grateful for the influence. And
I
learned a lot about compassion and having empathy and sincerity and, understanding things that were important for a young man to learn.
Yeah, and then you really saw that work ethic with your dad that you've been carrying on. So what made you get into really the industry that you're in now? I mean, you're into public safety.
It's very interesting. Many people will talk about following a passion they have.
Sure.
And when you hear that, and people write books about it, and they talk about follow your passion, but really it almost presupposes that there's an innate passion inside of you. And for some people, they may have that, but for me, I didn't have a passion for law enforcement, but I was in the military for 3 years, and being involved in that structure, military organization, the uniform,
Yep.
The discipline, integrity, character traits, all the things that they instill in you, for me, I turned a corner leaving high school and going into the military. For me, I felt like I did, and it really helped me with my growth. But after I left the military, left the Army, there was a job opening working in the Stafford County Sheriff's Office jail. At the time, there was a jail, and there was a correctional position, a deputy, sworn deputy correctional position. And so I put in for that. And from the time that I entered into that profession, I found my passion. So, sometimes you have to build that desire. You have to build that passion. Other times it's easier for others who they know from a short time in their lives, they know exactly what they want to do and what they want to be. But for me, I found it. I think it found me.
Oh, that's super cool. I think it found me. Yeah. This is called Leader to Leader. I totally relate to that. I was a music major in college, and if you had asked me all growing up, what are you going to be? I'm going to be the next Elton John, Mick Jagger, all of that. And through the course of growing up, my father was on the city council, and I got real involved in local issues. And they all were around business, in the business community. Well, what do I do now? I work at the Chamber of Commerce. I just made a really long story short. But it found me too. So I totally hear you on that. Like, you kind of find your way there sometimes.
Right. And I think those types of stories give people hope. There's a lot of people, even as they get older, they're still trying to figure out, what is it that I want to do? What is my passion? And I let people know, from me, that sometimes you have to find something that you enjoy, a desire, and then you build upon that. And then before you know it, you have a passion for it. And so you don't necessarily have to have an innate desire or an affinity to something you may not know. Many times you discover it, along your own personal journey.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of steps there between that day in 1986 to 2016, and ultimately being the sheriff and all the responsibility that you have now. How did you seize leadership moments, or were they presented to you? How do you find yourself now in this role?
Well, I'm very grateful, because in the Stafford County Sheriff's Office, we've had this incredible culture over, I've been there almost 36 years, and I've been surrounded my whole career by a lot of great leaders and people who have helped kind of shape, my future and helped me become the person I am. One of those people who I was his chief deputy, retired Sheriff Charles Jett.
Yes.
And for his 4 terms, and each term is 4 years, 16 years almost for that full time, I was his number 2 guy.
Okay.
And being around him,
that's great.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him, and he taught me a lot. And then our Major Mickey Coffey, I learned so much from him. And then Sheriff Ralph Williams, and even the sheriff who hired me, Sheriff Ashby. Just their different styles of leadership and learning by watching, and they poured a lot into me, and I'm grateful for all of it. And there's so many others that I can't even name who have contributed. And for me now, where I'm at, and I often tell people that you don't have, as a leader, you don't have to know all the answers. But the good thing I feel is if I surround myself with really talented, dedicated people, and that has helped me out a great deal. Surround yourself with the right people is very important.
I agree. It sounds great, and then when you don't really know until you're in that spot, and you've got to do that surrounding, right? And you feel your way, maybe, on getting those people. You talked about some of their leadership styles, but what about your own? How would you describe your style?
So for me, I don't have one type of leadership style. Something I learned back many years ago was situational leadership, which it depends really upon the circumstances, the situation you're in, also the level of development that the people that you're leading have. And so for me, I think you have to be flexible and adapt to the types of levels of skill that the people that you're leading and the type of environment and situation that you're in at that time. So, for a person who's new and may not have a high skill level, that person may need more directing. And something close to directing is coaching, and helping that person become, stronger, learn more, and help them, become a little more effective and get involved a little more in the decision-making process for them.
Right.
And then as you move along, you have people at different levels that may just need more delegating. You have people who need more hands-on, other people may need more delegating. But I think it takes a level of courage, it takes a level of adaptability to figure out what style do you apply for the situation that you're in and the people that you're leading. So
what you just described takes a lot of emotional intelligence. Because you've gone outside of your comfort zone and what may be your preferred way of leading, which might be hands-off or hands-on. And instead you said, really in a servant leader way, let me meet them where they are, right. Each one. And that takes more time. Yeah, it's something that we follow in our department when we hire. We hire for attitude. There's actually a book written about it. I love that, yes. Hiring for attitude. Mm-hmm. And what we look for is people that have a high degree or a certain level of emotional intelligence. Right. We can teach you how to do certain skills like writing a ticket, investigating a crime scene, and there's just a number of different things that we can teach you. But you have to come equipped with the right attitude. And emotional intelligence is very important. So you have to have a degree of empathy. You have to have a heartbeat for people and be able to put yourself in their shoes. And for people who understand emotional intelligence, there's much more to it. Understanding your own emotions and where you're at and identifying where other people are at. Are you coachable? Are you trainable? Yep. Can you assimilate into our culture? And and there's so much more to that. Can you take the feedback? Are you able to take the feedback? Are you a team player? Can you fit well into the culture and with that team? And all those are things that we look for. It's not an easy thing to measure, but that's right. What we look for. Yeah, back in the day, you never talked about this stuff. No. 1986, right? And even the 90s, I think emotional intelligence became a term or something in the late 90s. I have to look that up. There's no truth behind that statement because it's not sitting in front of me. But having read enough of the books, it's either the late 90s or early 2000s, I think, when that started to roll around. Mm-hmm. We use it a lot with our Leadership Fredericksburg program, obviously. But still, it's not innate in everyone. And when in the beginning of our conversation, you were talking about customer service that you saw exemplified through your father's work. And all of that is tied together. It's the same thing. Good customer service is like you're mirroring the person. You're meeting, you're meeting them where they're at with what they need, and so you've taken it to the next level now with your other professional capacity. It's pretty interesting. Right, yeah. I think something that's very important, and it's thrown around a lot, but having the right culture. It takes a long time to build the right culture. And again, I've mentioned about all the years I've been with the Stafford County Sheriff's Office and how we've been able to develop that culture, and it's so important. It's like a fingerprint, every culture is different, but it's like a fingerprint. It's kind of an identity thing. And for us, it really, over the years has developed, and even bringing our whole organization together back in 2002, having a facilitator there, we ended up crafting a mission statement that came from the people in the organization. So it didn't come from the hierarchy of the organization. It came from the people. And then developing the core values that we follow, our mission statement, and then presenting that to the sheriff at the time, and then adopting that. So starting, with the core values, the mission, and unique guiding principles for your culture, knowing where you're going, how do you do it, and then not just espousing that to others, but also living it. It can't be something that is just something that hangs on the wall. You have to incorporate it. It has to become ingrained in your DNA and your organization, and that can be the way you recognize people through awards, maybe, or recognition. It could be the way that you write your policy and procedure. It's how you hire. You have to incorporate all that into the organization. It's really, really important. So that culture of a department or a company or wherever you work is really important, I think. Yeah, and that's like really good business practices to have those things. Now, you said that was done perhaps the first time you really knew about it or were involved was in 2002. Do you guys continue to adjust that and modify that every few years, or how has that been since that time? So we've kept our core values and our mission statement the way it is. And actually what we did when I became sheriff in January 1st, 2016,
we ended up doing in 2017 strategic planning.
Yeah,
and so we have a number of focus areas. But what we did is we created a vision statement. But we went back to look at our mission and core values to make sure that those people who are in our organization now, do you still believe in it? Do you still feel like, hey, this is how we do it? And this is the vision we have, and this is the core values that we want to follow. And so, we have looked at that again, and we still continue to do it. It's very important,
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I came to work here at the Chamber in 2004, and over here, our listeners can't see it, but I'm pointing to our wall here. Our statement of values for the Chamber are right here, and they're under the sections of integrity, regionalism, collaboration, leadership, and innovation. And our board of directors looks at that every year or two. And in the whole time I've been here, which is now going on 17 years, I guess, we've only made the tiniest modification to that. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we updated the mission and vision. So it really is important. And we work with our team, our staff here. They all learn the mission and really start to have it come through their toenails almost, it's like just part of what we are. It's like every day, and you kind of have to be matched to it to be good at what you do, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We carry around our mission coins. It has the mission statement on the back and our core values. We hand it out to people, but each employee has it, and they keep it in their pocket as a reminder that absent all the policy and procedure, which are very important, and operating procedures and those things are very important. But if you follow those core values, if you show compassion, if you have integrity, if you're fair, if you're professional, that's what you strive for. Doing the right thing, the right time. It's never the wrong time to do the right thing. And so that's what we try to instill in our people. And that is so important to continue to, as I mentioned earlier, not just talking about it, but it's the way you evaluate a person when you're doing their evaluation. It's the way that you hire them. It has to be incorporated into so much of your organization.
Yeah, so much there. It's so funny. I just recently also interviewed the Chief of Police, Brian Layton. I think you know him here in Fredericksburg. And we talked about some of the same things. And the first thing up on that wall there that says, do the right things for the right reasons. Yeah. And so he talked about it some, and then you said the same thing. That's kind of cool. I love it that we all have that woven into the work that we do.
Oh, it's very important.
Yeah.
People need the direction. They need, another thing that's really important is people need to know what the expectations are, and they need to be clearly communicated, and that direct communication, and I mean that in a loving, caring, compassionate way, and clear expectations are so important for those, and through your mission and core values, your vision, statement, all of that, it's important.
It is. It really is. Well, you've been at it for a while. What advice would you give to someone who's going into a leadership position for the first time?
Well, leadership to me is more of influence. We're all leaders. We're all influencing people, whether you choose to be a positive influence or a negative person of influence. You're influencing people. So keeping in mind that you don't need a title or rank to be a leader. And, we're leading ourselves too, making choices every day. So I would, tell the person that always be truthful. Integrity, we talked about integrity, how important it is, and especially for law enforcement, because if you can't be trusted, if you can't tell the truth, then it's gonna lead to devastating results. So for us, public trust is the cornerstone of being an effective law enforcement organization. In order to be effective at policing, you have to build trust. So you have to have integrity. I mean, at the core of having a democracy, it has to be the trust there, and people will follow you if they know that you care about them. And caring about people are so important. There's a cliche I use a lot, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yes, I know.
And it has to be authentic, and you have to communicate with them, and you got to look out for them, because what happens in an organization, and I tell our people, there is a lot of innate danger and stress on the outside of the walls of this organization. There's a lot out there that we have to contend with. You need to make people feel safe within the organization, and that means that you have to have authentic compassion, and you have to care about them, and you have to demonstrate that by checking on them and really taking care of them each and every day. It's a little at a time, just making sure that you're there for your people, so they focus on the challenges on the outside of the organization, and they're not turning within at each other.
Yeah, sure.
So that's really important. Caring, having integrity, having compassion. compassion for people and looking out and letting them know you love them. Don't be afraid to let people know you love them. And to me, is so important. We love our community. And I tell our people in our organization, and they know it, that we need to let our community know we love them. And there's different levels of love, of course. But if you really love your community, you're going to make sure you do everything you can to help everything within your control to maintain that quality of life that people deserve to have.
Thank you for that. It's just so positive just sitting here listening to you. Everything that you're talking about is based in caring about others and doing the right thing.
Yeah,
it's just really, really good.
People, we all need grace. Here's a couple things I can share. I think that have helped me along the way.
Sure.
First, people need grace, and there are times when people do things that are so egregious that there are things that you have to do to hold people accountable.
Right.
But many times we find that we'll catch people maybe in the worst moment of their lives, and extending grace is so important. People need hope. You have to instill hope in people. We all need hope, and we need to be encouragers. You need to get out there and encourage people whenever you can. Give people hope. There's a lot of hurting people in our world, and so you have to have a heartbeat for people. And you have to open up your hands and your heart to people and let them know you care. And for those who do things that, are a threat to society, there are a small percentage of those people that, you have to take care of it the appropriate way. And, I often talk about law enforcement, for an example, and law enforcement in my profession almost has like almost has a negative sound to it, because you think law enforcement, but most of what we do is caring for people, helping people with problems that they're going through, and being there to help them along the way. So a small part of what we do is actually enforcing law.
Right, right.
But a bigger part, and it's a negative connotation to law enforcement, but most of what we do are helping, maintain order and being there for people who are going through a tough time, and community outreach, and just, trying to either strengthen existing relationships or building new ones, and letting people know. And you do that through transparency and compassion and communication that starts with maybe a simple dialogue, and then that builds to maybe a friendship, getting to know each other, having empathy and being present and listening to people is so important. And I tell our people too, we do a lot of events, and there's a lot of times where we have large gatherings, but where you really make an impact is each and every day when you have a positive encounter with people one-on-one. It's like making a deposit in the bank of community trust. I mean, it's so important.
I love it. That is some of the things you're saying. I'm just loving it.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I didn't write it. I read it.
I know. He doesn't have any notes or anything, you guys. But okay. So sometimes you have a difficult day. What do you do when you're stressed or feeling like things are a little bit tough?
So for me personally, I'm a spiritual person. I have a strong faith in God, and being a Christian, my faith really gets me through a lot. And then having some type of outlet. So for me, I love fitness, and that's a great way for me to maybe unload a little bit of stress. So having that, and then being around positive people, surround yourself, with productive, positive activities, whether it's working out, gardening, being around people you love and care about. All those things are really, really important. And then if you're going through a problem, just don't camp out there too long. When you look at problems, one thing that really helped me along the way years ago, I made a little note, and I put it up on my computer, and I put obligation versus opportunity, or opportunity versus obligation. And there's times when you may have to do things that you may not want to do, but if you reframe it in your mind, you think, wait a minute, I may not want to have to do that engagement or that event. But if instead of thinking in terms of it being an obligation, I have to think about it like this is an opportunity to build new friendships and to get to know people. So reframing things in your mind like that, and then just remembering there's a lot of times in life there's false realities. You may see things and interpret it a certain way. To everything there's two sides to it. There's nothing I think that doesn't have two sides to it. A piece of paper, whatever. There's a negative and a positive, and you can look at it and put the frame around it and think, okay, I'm going to frame it in a positive way. What can I draw from it? And when you do have those negative thoughts, just don't camp out there too long, because they can fester, and then they become emotions, and they go to your heart, and then before you know it, you become jaded. And so those are things that have helped me, is trying to frame things in a positive way, and then my faith, and then some type of physical activity that can help, keep you healthy.
Yeah, that's always great. I like to walk I have 2 black labs, and I love to just get out. You start the walk and the shoulders are tense, and you're still thinking about whatever that problem is. And before too long, I'm one with them, and my thoughts have not only gone beyond whatever the problem is, but somehow you're closer to solutions. You start clearing your head with that physical exercise, whether it's working out or walking or whatever it may be. It really does make that difference.
Yeah, and then you have 2 companions, right?
Yeah, they're my buddies.
Yeah, unconditional love.
Yes.
No judgment, nothing but just unbridled love.
Yes.
Right. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they're my joy. No question. Okay, if my husband hears it, you're my joy too. But they're our joy. We love them so much. Well, we're already at a point of, if you can believe it, winding our conversation down. We've just touched on a few things, and I sure hope in the future I'll have you back. But for right now, I want to ask you if you have any kind of a favorite motto or saying, or maybe even more than one, that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Yeah, I have a couple. It depends on what we're talking about and what we're doing. So in our conference room, or when our command staff or staff comes together, the leaders, we come together, we'll often talk about, hey, no one in this room is smarter than all of us. Because, everybody has their own talents and abilities.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I think is important. When you talk about working as a team, there's a proverb or a saying that I like that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. To me, that's good. If you talk about, I mentioned it earlier, about caring about people. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, meaning that you can be the smartest person in the room. You could be filled with knowledge and advice, but if people don't feel like you authentically care about them, then many times the communication is going to fall short. If you're taking a risk, and that's another thing that I've found in life, that anything I've ever accomplished in life that was meaningful requires partnerships.
Yeah.
And in the business community right now, in the era that we're in, you talk about strategic partnerships. It's so important. And for us working in the community, leadership is a team sport, so you need everybody off the bench and participating. So, those partnerships are really important. I have so many. If you're going to be blue, be bright blue. If you're going to have a bad day, you're going to be blue, just be bright blue. You can't get the second base with one foot on first, meaning taking a risk. Or if you're going to go out on a limb, sometimes you have to go out on a limb because that's where the fruit is. So risk taking and working together, those are things that sometimes you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. That's where the growth really happens. For me, that's where I've really grown. And it's uncomfortable, but you receive that growth, and it prepares you for the future, because once you've accomplished that thing that you had to step out of your comfort zone and feel really uncomfortable about, the next hurdle or mountain you have to climb, you're like, wait a minute, I already climbed that mountain. So it builds your confidence too, prepares you.
Wow, so much good stuff. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
Anything else that you would like to share with our listeners?
No, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce. We've had an incredible partnership over the years, and we are so grateful. We love you all. You play such a key role in our community. And for us, when it comes to policing and working in the community, our business community is really important. We want people to come to Stafford and the Fredericksburg area and thrive and have a great business. It's coming from a person who watched my father run a little business, and he ended up selling it to Mr. Silver down the road, and they ended up moving to Florida later on. So the business community is vitally important to our community. So we thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you more over the next month as we finish up our plans for the First Responders event. So that's going to be another great day again together this year in celebration.
Yeah, we're very grateful for that. I know I've told you many times before, but you're affording us, the Chamber is affording us an opportunity to recognize men and women in public safety who have done a phenomenal job. And we can't recognize them enough. And this is just another wonderful way of doing that. And we really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we agree. So we thank you. And we thank our listeners for spending time with us today. I'm Susan Spears, and our guest today was our Stafford, Virginia Sheriff, David Decatur. If you haven't already subscribed to the Chamber's We Are Business podcast, please go ahead and do so you'll know when our next episodes become available. And we just really appreciate our listeners for being here and finding out more about what's happening here in this part of the world, right here in the Fredericksburg region in Virginia. Thanks, and have a great day.